Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of 16 NTC, the Nonprofit Technology Conference. We're at the Convention Center in San Jose, California. My guests now are Chrissy Hyre, Allison, Weston, and Sabra Lugthart. Chrissy is Senior Strategist at Chapman, Cubine, Adams, and Hussey. Did I pronounce all those names correctly?
You did.
Even Cubine was correct?
You did, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I should have asked you before, but we're rolling now. Allison Weston is also with Chapman, Cubine, Adams, and Hussey?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. What do you do there, though? It doesn't have a title for you.
Oh, I'm a digital account executive.
Okay, excellent. And Sabra Lugthart is the Associate Director of Annual Giving at the Trust for Public Land. That was a very simple one. Thank you, Sabra. Everything documented here correctly. Thank you. Before we start, we have to shout out swag. Our swag item for this interview is from Corner Shop Creative. It's vegetables. We've got, I'm sure that's an eggplant. We've got tomato, stress balls, and pear stress ball also. But all the vegetables items are not stress balls. Like we have a banana pen. And we had a chili pen here. Oh, there's a chili pen too. All from Corner Shop Creative. So thank you very much. This goes into our swag pile. Allison, would you help me just add those items? I'll put them up front there. There we go. Oh, the eggplant fell. Okay. Put all the swag items on the swag pile. Thank you very much. Okay. Ladies, let's get serious about sustainers. Now, Sabra, you have to depart a little early. So when Sabra leaves, it's not because my questions suck or anything like that. It's just because you have to go because we're running a little behind. So let's start with you and make sure you get in some time.
Sure.
What is the problem that nonprofits are not getting things quite right with sustaining donors?
Well, first I'll preface that I'm a client of CCH.
That's fine.
I think, I'll give my organization as an example.
Well, okay.
Before I started working at the Trust for Public Land, we just didn't have a sustainer program in place. We didn't have a dedicated staff member. Sustainers are worth so much in revenue. So we did all of these things. We worked towards it to grow our program and really recruit sustainers. So I think really the bottom line is over time, when you build your sustainer program, it just generates so much revenue for your organization. So it's worth focusing on.
Okay, and we're for some reason we're not. What are we, Allison? What are we not quite getting right about building our sustainer base?
I think a lot of organizations do get some things right,
Oh, yeah,
so I wouldn't
I'm
say
not
everybody's
saying
doing anything wrong.
But what are some not getting quite right?
I think, a big factor for
Stay
continued
close to the mic there, please.
sustainer growth online is continued testing. So there's a lot of things to do with donation forms and, I think once you find something that works, that doesn't mean it's going to continue to work. So I think one thing we talked about in our session today was keep testing online and keep honing in on things in your donation form and making sure that, you're continuing to grow and try new things.
Okay. Chrissy, anything you want to add to our overview at this point?
I think, maybe two things that I would add to what these ladies have said are that, having organizations make sure that they're taking a multi-channel approach to sustainer recruitment, that they're using all the same channels, that they're soliciting one-time gifts in for sustainer recruitment, and then really evaluating on the back end, making sure that once they go to all of the trouble of making sure that folks have become monthly donors, that they're staying monthly donors and they're staying engaged in the organization.
Why do you think some organizations aren't taking the same multi-channel approach for sustainers that they are for other types of donors? What's happening? Is there a disconnect? Or what's...
Well, I think that, people get a little bit overwhelmed sometimes by, the number of things or the kind of logistical setup that it takes to start a sustainer program. And so it seems, I think sometimes like, the easy way to do this would be just to do it online. Let's just sell this through email. Let's just do a lightbox. Let's just do digital ads. And that seems like kind of an easier kind of entry point into sustainer giving, whereas, something like telemarketing, for example, which is what I really focus on with my clients, can feel a little bit scarier, a little bit more, a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit tougher to bite off.
Okay. Allison, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I think also for a lot of nonprofits, data is just a challenge. Even just getting everything set up in the back end. I know, Sabra, you had a lot of legwork to do before you got started, so I would say, just getting your house in order before you can even get started and keeping it in order and keeping your data clean is a big challenge, especially with sustaining giving.
Okay. All right, so let's start with our multi-channel approach to sustained giving. Now, of course, we're talking about monthly sustainers. Is that right? Is that we're all, just so everybody's on the same page? Okay, monthly sustainers. Our multi-channel approach, are we trying to convert existing donors to sustaining, or are we trying to acquire new donors as sustainers, or both?
You can do it all.
You can have it all.
You can have it all.
Wonderful.
So, I think that sort of the lowest hanging fruit is converting the people who are already connected to your organization as donors into monthly givers. I think that a lot of organizations also find tremendous success with kind of warm prospects, online activists, and that kind of audience. And then certainly Allison and Sabra could speak to this, but one of the things we find works really well digitally is using sustainer giving as an acquisition tool.
Yeah, so I think there's the biggest factor we've seen in converting to sustainers has been donor recency. So like Chrissy said, making sure that you're getting people that sustaining ask after they've made a one-time gift. And I think there's a lot of ways to do that online. Trust for Public Land, they do a few different things. One of them is a rolling email out to one-time donors 10 days post-donation. So that's a good way of reaching out to people when they're current and recent donors. And
Okay, now let's drill down a little bit. What does that email say? It thanks them for their gift. Sabra, what does it say?
Yeah, so the email is sent out 10 days after a donor makes their one-time gift, and the email says thank you. Basically, thank you very much for your recent gift. And then it builds a case for support of why sustaining gifts are so important, and it's all wrapped around the mission of our organization. And at the end, it says, would you please consider becoming a monthly donor? And that's about what's in the email.
And a link to click to
Of
do
course,
that.
yes.
Okay.
All of the links to
Okay.
click
Now,
through.
when they get their, do they also get a written acknowledgement for their one-time gift?
If in our organization, if they give online, they get an automated email, and sustainers get a different kind of automated
Okay.
email. So
Okay, we're not there
Okay.
yet. I'm still
All right.
a one-time donor.
yes, sorry.
They suppose they if they make an online gift, they get an automated.
Email online or automated, basically thank you tax receipt online,
Okay.
and then if a donor makes a gift offline, they get they get a mail.
Okay, are they
Direct mail.
All right, and in that offline direct mail, are they also invited to become sustainers?
In direct mail?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do like a BRE slip in direct mail has a sustainer ask, and we do some segmentation in email. Like we recently sent out a tax receipt that asked people to become, if they had recently given a one-time gift, ask them to become a sustainer, consider becoming a sustainer.
Okay.
And I think that that's actually really speaks to kind of some of the multi-channel approach that we're talking about.
It does. Yeah.
Which, it's not even just which channels you're inviting people to become a sustainer through, but branding the program across everything that you send a donor. So thanking them with that, and making that sustainer ask, and just kind of keeping that in the forefront of their mind as they go through sort of their donor life cycle.
Okay. Are one-time donors asked again before their other one-time gift if they have turned down the first sustainer ask? Are they then asked, like I said, before their other annual gift?
Yeah, good question. We solicit our monthly donors on a limited mail solicitation track. So we only send them mailings 3 times a year. So we will, when at that time is appropriate, the year-end campaign, we will ask them to make a one-time contribution, or we'll ask them to upgrade their gift. So we do. I'm reverting back to monthly donors, not one-time gifts. Sorry.
Okay. My question was,
Yeah.
how often do you ask the one-time donors to become sustainers? You ask them the first time, 10 days after their
Yep.
one-time gift. How often after that before their next one-time gift?
We don't have a
If
plan
ever.
we don't
You
have a
don't.
plan for that right
You
now.
know, okay. Allison and Chrissy, do you think that is advisable, or should you just continue to wait until they made their next one-time gift?
Well, one of the things that we find to be really successful is again, kind of, you're asking them multiple times, but maybe you're not asking them in the same way. So you're thanking them for their gift, and there's this kind of soft ask for them to become a sustainer. Then you send them an email and explain the program to them and ask them to become a sustainer that way. Then you call them and ask them to become a sustainer, and then you follow up from that and say, thanks so much for listening. Is this something you would consider? So it's kind of a cohesive strategy that asks them multiple times, but it's not necessarily like these kind of random, isolated asks. It's sort of an overarching.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it sure does. And Allison, to your point about the importance of data earlier, now, obviously, we have to have good data for all these channels. What Chrissy just described, we need a phone number, we need their email, we need an accurate mailing address, right? The importance of good data before we can do any of this.
Yeah, no, that's definitely right.
Okay. Do we also need to know, piggybacking on that, how they want to be communicated with? So suppose somebody doesn't want to receive phone calls.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely has to be taken into account. You don't want to make the donor angry. You want to communicate with them in the channel that they prefer to be communicated with in, but that doesn't necessarily mean that someone who donates online is only ever going to donate online. That's why we keep talking about the multi-channel approach. So,
in fact, 45% of the sustainers that we see recruited into programs are actually recruited as a sustainer by a different channel than the first channel they gave a gift to the organization in. So we brought them in through mail, but then they became a sustainer through the phone or online, or they came in online and then we made them a sustainer via the phone.
Almost half. Almost half convert their giving channel.
Exactly.
Okay. Did I use the right language in that?
You did. It was very...
Oh, okay. I'm surprised. Okay. All right, so we still have a good amount of time together. Sabra, before you Sabra has to go now?
Yeah.
Okay. Should we say goodbye? I don't want to
Yeah.
hold you up. Okay. 'Cause we're
Sorry
running
to
late.
have
That's
to leave early. Thank you.
It has nothing to do with the conversation, right?
No.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. Thank you for saying that, even if it's not true. All right. I'm going to turn Sabra's mics down. Sabra's mic down. All right. Thank you, Sabra. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Okay. Now we're just left with the consultant, so now we're at a big loss.
Right.
I'm not happen to be a consultant myself. I do plan giving fundraising consulting, so
Oh, wow.
that was not serious. Okay. Where should we take this next? We talked about how to convert, how to gain. What else have we not talked about that we should be in this whole multi-channel topic? Campaign ideas. You have some campaign ideas.
yeah, I mean, I could talk a little bit about some different things that we've seen work well online.
Why don't you? Come
Okay.
on. Don't hold out on Nonprofit Radio.
Sure. So I think one of the things we've seen work really well with a lot of clients in a lot of different areas has been a sustainer upsell lightbox. So that means basically on your one-time gift form, somebody makes a one-time gift, and before their gift actually processes, a lightbox pops up and says, hey, thanks for your...
Okay, let's define lightbox. Everybody doesn't know whether it's opaque or it's not opaque or
It's
whatever.
you know when you go on a site and kind of the site grays out and then something pops up to the forefront?
Right.
That's basically what it
We have
is.
jargon jail on Nonprofit Radio, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to help keep you out of it.
Sorry. So
Okay. So you can still see through it.
you
right?
can
It's-
still see through it.
it's
So picture
translucent.
So picture this. You've
okay.
made a gift, then you hit process, and then the screen kind of grays out and a box pops up. And it says, has a nice image, and it says, thanks for your gift. Before we process your one-time gift, would you like to turn this into a monthly gift? And you can click no, or you can click the X and X out of it, and your one-time gift will still process. But if you click yes, then it will convert to become a sustainer. So you're catching people right at the moment when they're making a gift, and you just get people to convert. And we've seen that it works really well for bringing in new sustainers, but also doesn't depress one-time revenue. Does not.
Okay. And what do we know about what amounts to ask them to? Oh, would you like to make this gift a sustaining gift? So the same amount?
No, the
Or
amount is different. So
okay.
in the back end of the lightbox itself, there's kind of an ask string tree. So basically it gives a range. So if you make a gift between, say, $5 and $15, then you're asked for a $5 monthly gift. Or, if you kind of move up and you make a $30 to $50 gift, you're asked for a little bit higher, maybe $15 or $12 monthly gift. So it's kind of tiered, so you're making sure that you're asking for the right amount from people.
Okay. And what do we call that strategy? That's the
Sustainer upsell lightbox.
okay, sustainer upsell
Yeah.
lightbox. So I've got the terminology.
Yeah.
As long as you define it, jargon is okay. No, we don't like jargon, but terminology. The sustainer upsell lightbox, of course. Who doesn't know what that is?
Exactly.
Everybody who listens to Nonprofit Radio does.
Now they do.
I'm writing this phrase down so I don't forget it. Sustainer upsell lightbox. Chrissy, the woman who sat in your seat before this interview was Misty. So that was Misty McLaughlin. Now we have Chrissy Hyre. Okay, Chrissy, what other campaign strategy can you share for us?
Well, campaign strategy. I think that as Allison alluded to, one of the most important things that we see for organizations to remember, no matter what channel they're trying to recruit sustainers through, is really the recency of the gift. So I think that a lot of times organizations have a little bit of a fear that if they ask too closely to this to the person's original gift, that it's going to seem ungrateful to be like, well, now could you do $10 a month?
So like 10 days seems to be okay.
10 days is fine. And in
Okay.
fact, the most successful phone programs we do call people within 30 days, which that's really close. I mean, they just gave a gift, but you really want their commitment and their passion for the organization to be top of mind. And
So any time in the 30 days? Not the next day.
not the next day. No, typically the window starts kind of 2 weeks after their gift.
So 2 weeks to 30 days, you're safe in asking for a sustainer gift after someone made a one-time gift.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And of course, you want to thank them, you want to appreciate them for the amazing donor that they are, but that's totally acceptable. And I think the other thing that we talked a lot about today and that we could go into a little bit more now is sort of what to do with sustainers once you bring them on. And so I think that, sustainer support is great because it's this stable monthly revenue, but it's not a set it and forget it kind of strategy. And so there's a lot of work that has to be done once you actually bring these folks to the table to become monthly donors to make sure that they stay engaged and passionate and interested and that they continue to give and you don't lose them because their credit card expired or they just sort of became disimpassioned with your organization.
Okay, very important to keep. Yes, we don't want to lose. We don't want to lose our donors. What do we know about after someone becomes a sustainer? Do they then keep up their annual giving too?
So this is something that a lot of organizations kind of go back and forth with. Do you continue to ask sustainers for one-time gifts? Do you try to just upgrade their sustainer gift? Like, what is the perfect mix of how to resolicit them?
Okay.
And so one of the things that we found is that, these are your most committed, passionate donors. And so it is completely acceptable to ask them for a one-time gift. A lot of folks use a strategy called the 13th gift, where in December they'll ask sustainers to give sort of the 13th gift of the year. If you have like a key matching gift campaign or something really urgent happening within the organization, sustainers are a great group of people to reach out to. And then organizations have seen success upgrading sustainers as close to their original sustaining gift as 3 months after they give it. So, there's really no hard and fast rule. It's kind of about testing and finding what works best for the organization.
Okay. I repeat things that sound unusual to me. Even just within 3 months of their first sustainer gift, it's okay in some cases to ask them to upgrade that gift.
Absolutely. So we worked with a really large nonprofit that has an extraordinarily large sustainer program, and what they tested 6 months versus 3 months in terms of a sustainer upgrade and found no difference at 3 months, that as many people upgraded, the donors weren't displeased to be getting called again so quickly, that folks felt really engaged and excited. They kind of you just always have to explain what their support is doing. Why is that additional $3 a month so important?
Okay. Allison, can you help us with when to be thanking our sustaining donors? I think it's pretty well recognized we don't thank them every month, but do we thank them every year? What's appropriate?
Yeah, I think they definitely need to thank them, but not overthink them. But I think something else that you can do more often is kind of keep those engagement touches going. So send engaging emails that aren't just asking people for money. Sending them something that's going to keep them tied to the mission of your organization and kind of keep the organization top of mind without asking them for money every single time they're opening an email from you.
Yeah.
So whether that's a quiz about your organization, reading an article, something fun like that to keep them engaged and informed, I think is really important. And sustainers can, of course, be lumped into that along with everyone else on your email list, on your contact list. But I think, it's nice at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year to send out a nice impact email or a nice impact, whatever you're doing to show, how much their support meant to you over the year and all the stuff that you were able to do because of all of the, consistent support that sustainers gave you.
Okay, so generally recognize that end of the year is the best time?
Or if there's another key moment in your organization, I don't think it's a problem to thank donors, but I think you can do really consistent engagement emails to keep folks, tied to your organization.
Okay. How about we move to a little budgeting conversation?
Okay.
What are our expense items that we need to factor into creating a sustainer program?
Well, I think that in some regards, and Allison, definitely jump in, I think that when you think about sustainer recruitment, you almost have to think about it in the same way you think about acquisition. And so you're going to invest in acquisition, but it's a long-term, kind of long-game strategy. And sustainer recruitment is the same way. So, obviously one of the biggest costs is making sure you have the back-end systems to process those folks monthly, that you're not going to lose track of that. And, all of that is part of the organizational budget, I would assume. And then additionally, making sure that you are kind of realizing that if you're starting a program from scratch, this is like the long game. This isn't something that's going to pay off in 3 months. This is something that you're looking at. In some cases, if you really want to build a large program, the big net is going to happen after a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, depending on how big you want to go.
Okay, so you got to be in it for a longer term.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other budget type factors, Allison, you want to jump in with?
No, I think you pretty much well covered it, but I think, if you're sending out emails, you obviously have to have a CRM. So I think a lot of the stuff, most organizations already have, but it's a matter of using it for recruiting sustainers. But definitely I think the biggest hurdle for a lot of organizations is getting that payment processing set up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you got to have payment processing that you trust. Are there payment processors that you like, that you want to give a shout out to particularly well? I mean, it's okay.
What about Stripe?
Yeah, so, I think that this isn't so much about the actual monthly processing, but, there are a lot of great tools out there right now, like Stripe or Vantiv, that help recapture credit card information before it lapses, which really helps organizations that are trying to build sustainer programs stem that sustainer attrition. And it can be a really huge factor in turning around sustainer revenue.
Okay. Now, what was the second one? Vantiv? No.
Vantiv.
Vantiv.
Mm-hmm. It used to be Lytle, now it's Vantiv.
Okay. Now, so we know that when credit cards lapse, we're likely to lose sustaining donors.
Mm-hmm. So just kind of some quick stats I can share with you.
Yeah.
So I work with a pretty large-sized political action committee, and they are very committed to growing their sustainer program. They spend a lot of money investing in this new sustainer growth. And so this year, or in 2015 rather, we saw this pattern where we were exceeding our budget projections for new sustainer revenue every single month, and our sustainer number was decreasing every single month. So it just made no sense, right? Defied logic. So we dug in to see, what's going on? Why are all these people falling off the file? Because the problem was really attrition. And of those folks who were falling off, 80% of them were falling off because of bad credit card numbers. So this was sort of during that time where we all got those new chip cards, or their expiration dates were expiring. They just were getting new cards, and we weren't able to contact them quickly enough to get that new credit card back on file. So with this process, all of a sudden, we implement this in December, and we go from losing thousands of dollars every month to seeing 23% growth since December through February.
Okay, so what are we doing in advance of the credit card lapsing?
So it's a little bit technical, and this is not really my bailiwick, I will tell you. But so basically what these companies do is they contract with banks so that they have a relationship with the bank to update your credit card before it ever even expires. So for example, if you have a Netflix account, you probably notice that your credit card never actually expires, no matter what kind, how many cards your bank is sending you in the mail. And that's because they're contracting with them directly to get that information so that you, the consumer, don't have to go in and update all of that.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's all happening transparent to you. It happens automatically.
Right.
And so you never have to decide, I've given enough to this organization.
Exactly. It's a customer service convenience that actually saves organizations a lot of money.
Yes, it's also a nonprofit convenience.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, we still have a couple of minutes left. But let's see, some benchmarks. Benchmarks for sustainer growth. Allison, can you help us with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends where different organizations are in their sustaining journey about growing their program. So I think, when folks are thinking about starting or growing a sustainer program, you have to kind of set your own benchmarks, but I can throw out a couple stats. I think, some things are to consider. Overall, a good healthy benchmark would be about having 10% of your revenue come from sustaining giving. So, that varies from organization to organization, but I think that's kind of a national benchmark and a good back of the napkin calculation on that. I also think some other things to consider are just, benchmarking and kind of setting some goals for how much revenue goals you want to have come from sustaining giving, and also thinking through, looking at how much you want to spend to acquire these donors, and then what's the return on investment? How long are these sustainers staying on the file? Are they lapsing off? Is there a certain channel that's not really working very well? Maybe honing in on, tweaking your strategy a little bit. So I think there's different things, and it's going to be different for every organization because, not everyone is at the same place in their sustaining giving program. But those are some things to consider.
Okay. And Chrissy, anything you want to leave us with?
I think that ultimately what I would say is that while building a sustainer program is an investment, it ultimately is so worth it. It is probably the number one thing that organizations can do to help grow their files. Folks who become a credit card sustainer will stay on your file for 37 months or longer. They're your best prospects for planned giving. They're your best prospects for mid-level upgrading. And they are ultimately kind of the core of your fundraising once you develop that audience.
That was ideal. Concise. Very good. Beautiful. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Okay, they are Chrissy Hyre, and she's a senior strategist at Chapman, Cubine, Adams, and you say it was Hussey, right?
Hussey.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and Allison is also there doing, remind us, Allison?
Digital account executive.
Digital account executive. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
is Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of NTC 16, the Nonprofit Technology Conference, San Jose, California. Thank you so much for being with us.